It's going good.
All right. All
How's
right.
everything going on your end?
Had a rough
It's
week.
cool.
Had a rough week, but getting through it. Getting through it.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is a cold November day here in Minnesota. But it is. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I see we have a Democratic debate to talk about amongst other things today.
We do actually. So I do. What I pulled up here is the Washington Post, and we could probably just go through this article and basically talk about what the winners and losers are, what in our opinions, what we thought about the debate overall. So
I have some very specific thoughts and very in a very general way
okay,
about.
I completely agree. I'm kind of in that boat there with you. Um, let's just go ahead. Let's start off with the general thoughts about it.
Mhm. Uh, time. It like I watched the first couple of debates and I was expecting some substance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is going on in your background?
Hold on. My
Uh,
window's open. Some dude that has like, he has basically a dog whistle for brakes. This is
Jesus Christ, gotta those things are down to the nub, man. No, so I think we've seen it so far
jeez,
in this election cycle,
jeez. Is that better?
and even more. Yeah, I'm still here. Even more than that, we've seen it since 2016. You ask one of these guys, and they did it all last night. Like Kamala Harris, what do you think about drug reform? And she goes into an 8 minute tirade about why she doesn't like Donald Trump.
Yeah. And
It's like, what? No, that's not the question. The question is, what are your thoughts? Like, we get that you don't like Donald Trump. If you like Donald Trump, you wouldn't be running for president, and you wouldn't be running on an opposing ticket.
yeah, and
Like, I
thank
don't
God the
care
screeching
that you
stopped.
don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know, and this is why I think this might be Joe Biden, one of Joe Biden's best debates, because he stuck to yes and no answers. He would say yes or no, then his explanation. He kind of stayed away from
Okay, so hold
saying,
on.
huh?
So you thought that this is one of Joe Biden's better debates?
Yeah, because before he's just been incoherent. You can't understand what he's saying. He's talking about some dude named Corn Pop. He's talking about, I mean, he's still lying on an unimaginable scale. You know, blatant lies that no one corrects him on, which is infuriating. There was one, I think Cory Booker was catching him on one of them, but I guess he still got away with it because they're all
No,
still
no.
spineless.
I think he got hit with it real hard because you're talking about when he said the only African American woman in the Senate or something like that, and Cory Booker called him on it. Like, I mean, I see a lot of people talking about that today.
Well, I mean,
Across like
I,
the
I,
internet.
I at that particular moment, I think that's a little disingenuous to focus on that one point, because I think he meant the first. He did reiterate that he meant the first first black senator. So he might have
I mean,
meant
yeah,
that, but this is also going towards Joe Biden's mental decline and him not being able to string together a coherent sentence. So
I mean, him and Bernie have a combined age that would put us well before the Civil War. I think at this point.
yeah,
So
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you are an older person and you're running for office, if you can pass a mental evaluation, which I believe Bernie could, I believe Elizabeth Warren could. I just do not think Biden could. It feels like Biden doesn't know what year he's in.
I can agree with that, and you're not the first person I've heard say that.
Yeah, and it's
Like,
sad. It's really sad because he's putting himself through all of this, putting his family in the spotlight, and Now it's really coming to fruition because it's going to start coming out in the impeachment hearings about his personal corruption.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like it would, I think it would be better for everybody if he just kind of like was like, this probably isn't going to work. Let me just let me get out of this because I think even if he wins the nomination, he doesn't have a snowball's
Oh no,
chance in the
no.
general election.
The thing is,
Only
he's not gonna win the nomination. He's been on a very steady decline. Real Clear Politics has the current race as a three-way tie, and this is
between who?
Bernie,
Warren, and
Warren,
Harris.
yeah, Bernie, Warren, and Biden. So the top three
Oh,
that's the top three. Harris is polling at like 2 or 3%. Mayor Pete is basically at like 5%, and
Mayor Pete
yeah,
is
he's the judge of booties, as they would say.
He's
sole
not even doing anything.
It's not.
He's like, oh my god, I'm sorry. I look at the field, right? Because me, I'm coming at it from which one of these would I vote for? Should Trump do something that would be like, completely off the rails? I mean, because anything can happen, and I just don't see. I mean, me and you, we've personally, we've talked about Bernie over and over again. I think like we beat that horse to death. Like
Yeah.
I don't see myself voting for Biden. I'm sure as hell not going to vote for Elizabeth Warren.
No.
Like she she doesn't even know what her platform is. Like they called her on it last night too on the debate. They asked her about the Democrat in Alabama who passed the abortion law, and they asked her point blank twice, "Does he have a place in the Democratic Party?" And she would not answer the question.
Yeah.
She like neoed that thing all over the place, and at the end of it, it's like I get it. You're not strong enough to commit to a position. That's not the kind of person I want as a president of the
No, of
United
course.
States.
I mean, here's the thing about Warren. And here's about the thing about every single Democratic candidate that's up there. They all really, really want to be president. Like they want to be president more than anything in the entire world. Like you can tell too because they're always talking about when I'm president. It always sounds like it's a dream of theirs, doesn't it?
Yeah, I expect that kind of wording because you don't want to say if I win. You want to sound self assured,
Yeah, you want to sound
I get what
strong,
you're
but
saying.
it doesn't. It doesn't even say that. No one says when I win. They're say when I become president. It's like, are you really gonna though? You still have this to take care of, this primary to take care of. I think Joe Biden really only said when. First, he was talking about when first you got to win the primary, then you got to win the general, which I took to mean foreshadowing as pivoting and the general to a more center position, which is political suicide at this point. 20 years ago, it might have worked, but
see, I gotta disagree with you there. I think in this debate, like they all have it backwards. I feel like they're all running right now like they think they're in the general election because they're going really negative on Trump, right? So when I'm watching this, to me, it sounds like they all feel like they're running. They're in the primary, but for me, it feels like they're all treating this like a precursor, like a pre-general
that's
election.
the thing because none of those candidates are getting support except for the top three because none of them have anything they believe in. There's really nothing. I mean, probably maybe the things that affects them personally, like Tulsi Gabbard in foreign policy. She looked really, really solid in foreign policy. I mean, her expertise looks solid. I wouldn't comment on her like actual, suggested policies, but her expertise looks sound. Whereas Mayor Pete looks like, hey, I served in a unit and I know how to deal with Russia. No, you don't. Just because you served and held a gun in your hand doesn't mean you know how to handle foreign policy.
And, I mean, I think this kind of speaks to a difference in the parties almost
Mm-hmm.
as well, because um, Trump is running really hard on on domestic policy and like what he wants to do here at home, but the Democrats all seem to be focused on abroad, 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 abroad. Like, what are we gonna like? What's their gonna plan? What are our plans for dealing with other countries?
Yeah, and
And
that's how
I
you say
don't
they're
think
getting
that
it backwards. It's
well.
because the Democrats should be the party of domestic policy and then foreign policy separate. What can foreign policy do for domestic policy? And
Exactly, and I think that too, like that the fact that the Democrat Party as a whole, and especially the top three at least on the debate stage, they are so zeroed in on doing on not doing anything that Trump could possibly say, "Hey, I agree with that," on
mm-hmm.
that they are so far that they don't even want to touch the stuff that he's talking about,
No,
which is just kill him in a general election because we've talked about it. The farmer in Iowa does not care about what is happening in the Gaza Strip. They
yeah,
just don't.
yeah,
you
no, they don't.
know?
No, you really don't. You really don't. And they don't think foreign policy affects their lives. The only time they believe it affects their lives if when it feels like their vote um, is being subverted through foreign means. Even then, they don't really care that
Yeah,
much as they care about what's happening personally. And I want to note though that we're talking about all the candidates how they're only talking about foreign policy. You know who isn't talking about full foreign policy and then sticking into it and just sticking
Andrew
to.
Yang.
I was going to get to that. Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, the only two candidates who are
Yeah,
only talking about domestic policy and how they're going to fix your life are those two candidates. Even Elizabeth
and,
Warren, she sometimes gets on a rant on foreign policy and starts talking about Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in the entire history of the world. Yeah, yeah, we all get that, lady. You're talking to your base right now. You're in a Democratic presidential candidate primary. We all get that. No one likes him here. Talk about what you're gonna do.
yeah, and
And
I
she's a
will
little
say,
better on it than most of them, but still, it really gets to me when, and that's when I kind of shut down. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that shit. You know?
yeah. Well, I I think it's interesting, really, to see Bernie Sanders on display against this whole big field,
Mm-hmm.
because as much as I disagree with Bernie Sanders on pretty much, I would say 98% of his policy positions, it is really interesting just to see him just like stick to the things that he's been saying for 50 years and how it just is so basic when it
Yeah,
comes to the primary. Like
yeah,
the thing about marijuana
and that's
legalization.
what's getting him support is that he's sticking to his policies.
It's like you watch, like you see Bernie, right,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see like Biden and Warren trying really hard to like be an imitation
Yes,
of Bernie.
exactly.
Warren especially. I don't think Biden is necessarily trying to copy Bernie. I think he's just trying to say to people what they want to hear.
Exactly. Yes. She what she's doing is she's looking at the polling of the Democratic base and saying, "Hey, this is, you know." Also, let me point out there was a gigantic, blatant lie that Joe Biden said. Gigantic, blatant lie. He said that a
Which
majority.
one?
No, he said that this is quote kind of a quote, but I can't remember the exact wording. But this is almost as close to a direct quote it gets. A majority of the Democratic base does not want Medicare for all. That is a complete blatant lie.
I'm not even a I'm not even a Democrat, and I know that's wrong.
Exactly.
like,
He will lie to you directly into your face, and it is just disgusting to see from someone like him. Because even before he ran for president, I had a higher standard of him than what he's showing now. I thought he was nice
see,
Uncle Joe. He he may be out of time a little bit, but he'll learn, he'll get there. He'll be liberal, he'll be progressive, you know. But it's been disgusting to see. It really has.
yeah, old school Democrat, and I think the modern Democratic Party, it just doesn't fit.
He's not even like a Clinton Democrat. He's older than that.
Yeah.
it's
Well,
ridiculous. It's crazy.
like around the Carter administration.
He was probably one of those guys that was saying, maybe we need to integrate segregation. We need to slowly reduce segregation. We can't just outright cut it out because then all the white people are going to get mad. No, and then you have, someone like, Lyndon Johnson say, no, it's over now, right now, no more. And then he was like, okay, I guess. I mean, if we have the political capital to get it done, we can do that. No, I don't want someone like that in office.
I will say this: he is very centrist,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that he's not threatening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like somebody like Bernie Sanders, to especially to someone who's right leaning or like the center. Someone like Bernie Sanders can come off as a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Like,
He's a bit like big change.
at
Big
least he's
idea.
honest.
Exactly.
I mean, at least he's honest. He's like, yeah, 90% tax rate isn't off the table. I can at least respect that he'll come out and say, look, here's what I stand for. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. But these are my policies. If you're voting for me, these are the policies
here's
you're
what
gonna.
here's what I know, because he's been in Washington for so long. He knows how to really get things done because he knows how to negotiate. And the rule number one of negotiating is ask for more, and you get. If you ask for more than you want, you'll get what you want. If he says there's going to be a 90% tax rate, they're going to settle on 50%. If he says, let's go Medicare for all right now, the Republicans are going to slowly but surely he's going to shift the Overton window so far to where they're going to have to agree with him on something.
I mean, I honestly feel like it's definitely gone.
I mean, especially in the Democratic Party, it's shifted so far. No one was ever discussing Medicare for all except for Bernie Sanders the last time around. Hillary Clinton flat out rejected it. She was like, no, this is not happening.
Even going back to, to the 90s when they were talking about health, because I remember hearing all about healthcare reform in the 90s during the Clinton administration. Nobody brought up, hey, maybe we should go to a single payer system where
it was considered political suicide.
Nobody brought that up. Oh yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like it's still not a great idea, but that's a discussion I think for another time.
Oh, definitely. We can have that policy discussion all we want, but I want to get into a little bit of the winners and losers according to Washington. This is what they think. This is the Washington Post after all. So they think Pete Buttigieg was a winner. I don't really think so. They view persona and ability to debate more than policy and substance. He didn't. What are they trying to say here? Go toe-to-toe companies. Okay, you can't really do that. You barely won the mayorship in your town. Going to protect Washington might look small, but frankly, living in capitalism. Okay. Yeah, they're not saying anything here. They're not really saying anything.
Mayor of what city is he the mayor of? Indianapolis,
South Bend, Indiana, which is actually pretty close to Chicago.
I knew it was somewhere in Indiana because I remember something was going on. This is why I don't think Pete Buttigieg has a leg to stand on right here.
Here's what's funny. Here's what's funny about Indiana, right? Here's what's funny about at least South Bend, Indiana. You can't buy alcohol on Sunday.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I went to a store. I remember I don't know why I was in Indiana, but I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna go get a bottle. I'm gonna get some beer. I'm gonna go to a friend's house or whatever. I can't remember what it was. But I went there. I'm like, I went and I brought it up. They're like, you can't buy that. I'm like, what do you mean I can't buy it? This is America. This is America. And they're like, no, you can't buy that today. I'm like, what do you mean I can't buy that today? She's like, it's Sunday. You can't buy that today. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous. And it's this dumb religious, theocratic bullshit that we're all subject to.
Which is funny because if you go in the Bible Belt, I guarantee you will find alcohol on a Sunday.
Exactly.
So here's why I don't think Pete Buttigieg has a leg to stand on. I got a friend that works in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a couple months ago something was going on in South Bend, Indiana, and I like asked him. I was like, "Hey man, what's going on in Indiana?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, he was like the whole city's turned against Pete Buttigieg because of something happened with some cops. Like he he's not even popular in his own city.
Yeah.
How's he gonna win the country? You know, like
No, no.
no.
He's trying to get the gay vote. That's it. The same way that Kamala Harris and Cory Booker are trying to get the black vote because they're black. It's completely disingenuous, and everyone can see through that paper thin disguise.
Harris last night when she blatantly just said we need to reform the Obama coalition. She basically should have just said, "Hey, everybody that voted for Obama, please vote for me."
Yes. Yeah, and
Just,
and don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Joe Biden did the exact same thing. He did the exact same thing.
Didn't work out too well.
No one wants that anymore. They see through the fact that, hey, Obama really didn't do much for us. He didn't break up the big banks. Big banks are bigger than they've ever been. So we're still at risk for a financial collapse. You know? Like, he made Obamacare weak so that the next Republican that comes into office is just going to completely gut it and make it terrible. And it's just
the problem, the difference between, say, Obama and Kamala Harris or Cory Booker is people liked Obama.
Exactly.
He had a friendly demeanor. Nobody looks at Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and says, I want to grab a beer with one of them. Because Kamala Harris might narc on you.
Exactly.
And Cory Booker's got those bug eyes going. Like, he's so intense all the time. It's like,
I cannot stand Cory Booker's corrupt ass. I cannot stand him. You remember that segment I did way back when?
I remember watching when he voted no on reimportation.
Yep.
Because he's bought and sold.
Exactly.
He is a corporate Democrat.
Exactly.
I honestly think that this is a Democrat and a Republican Party issue because both parties are basically saying no to the career politicians. Mm-hmm. Like Democrat voters this time around, they want an outsider. They want somebody that's going to come in and be able to go toe to toe with Trump and shake things up. Just the same as in the last election, Republicans wanted an outsider, someone that wasn't going to sell out.
What you're also seeing, and this is something we discussed off podcast a little bit with the NSA spying, and with I want to have an entire deep discussion about Edward Snowden and the deep state, but basically what we were talking about was you have whenever a new president gets inaugurated, the intelligence community comes to them and gives them this scare tactic saying if these are all of our threats, if you don't give us what we want, this could destroy our country. And what they want is they want a mass surveillance state that spies on every American without cause and violates Fourth Amendment rights. Do you think someone that comes into office is going to be principled enough to say no? And to be like, no, you cannot spy on people. You cannot infringe on people's rights. You have to say that about a candidate. None of those candidates, not even Elizabeth Warren. I don't think Andrew Yang would. The only person I think would be Bernie.
Honestly, to answer that, somebody that would just stare them down and say, "No, we're doing this my way," you'd basically have to elect an absolute madman. And I don't mean like someone that's like literally insane, but I mean like in the sense of the meme, an absolute madman.
Yeah,
someone
lad.
That
you'd have to elect a mad lad.
Comes in, steamrolls everybody, and just is like, "Nah, we're doing this my way. I really don't care how you've been doing it."
What they'd have to say, exactly. What they'd have to say is that, basically, they'd be like, okay. I mean,
Trump isn't even that guy.
No, he's not. He's giving them even more power. But yeah, they would have to say, okay, if you're not going to give us this, we're going to make your presidency a living hell. It's like, okay, you're fired. And like, excuse me? Yeah, you're fired. Get out of my office.
I hate to say this, but you'd almost have to elect someone like Elon Musk, someone who is like one breakup away from becoming a supervillain.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you can't threaten me because I have Iron Man armor.
exactly.
Like,
Iron Man
like,
2020. I'm down for that.
Tony Stark, sure, why not?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's just keep going to the list. Amy Klobuchar. Excuse me. Get the hell out of my face.
Nobody even talks about her, even in Minnesota.
She has this smug look that every word she says is sticking the landing 10 out of 10 times. And it's like listening to your aunt talk about something she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. And it's just, I cannot, she makes my skin crawl every time. I don't even want to spend time talking about her.
Yeah.
So they're saying winners, and then they go from candidates to topics.
Oh, Amy Klobuchar, marijuana.
What? Okay.
Is marijuana there?
Okay.
The wealthy.
Okay, so the Democratic base position is legalize marijuana. We don't have to go too deep into that. Okay, the wealthy. Okay, sure. Let's talk about that. But then what they're getting a little bit defense in the debate. What? We're on 2% wealth tax that would sympathize with the goal of creating a revenue and fair tax code. Oh, okay, because so they're basically saying that the winner were the wealthy because their dogs came to fight for them on the debate stage. Right, cool. A delayed clapback. What? Oh, this was when Gabbard was attacking Harris, and then Harris was attacking Gabbard. Harris doesn't know how to debate. She really doesn't. She'll say things that are completely wrong, and think that she's lying to people and persuading people to think the way she thinks. But then Tulsi Gabbard was laughing at her, think you're just lying to me. And yeah, it's
Kamala Harris really feels like all she has to do is say, "I'm black, vote for me."
Yeah, I'm a black woman, vote for me. Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not saying a black woman cannot be president. What I'm saying is you have to have ideas and you have to have substance, no matter what color you are.
Yeah,
no matter what gender you are.
Yeah, probably don't want to make that your main platform position.
Yeah.
Because the minute someone asks you about policy, you fall apart.
Exactly. She does. She completely collapses. She starts smiling like you're trying to dig dirt on her and you're going dirty, but people are like, yeah, that's stupid. You are a corrupt and disgusting person because you stand for nothing. This is interesting. This is interesting. Huh?
I was gonna say I feel like I really need to give credit to Barack Obama, because when he ran, he did kind of run like that, where he definitely used the fact that he was a black man as a way to move his positions, to get his base roused. I suppose
he would still talk about policy.
Like his policy, his policies were probably a little bit shaky, but at least he actually had policy positions.
Yes, he believed in them and he fought for them with a fantastic political demeanor, just something that made people inspired. Say what you want about how he implemented everything. He was a master at political manipulation in like a better sense of like convincing people to be on his side.
Well, I think in the context of politics, saying that manipulation isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's how you get things done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just feel like looking at the way that the Democrat Party has been running since the end of the Obama administration, you can definitely feel like they're trying to. It's like watching a kid trying to cheat, but they don't really understand what they're trying to cheat off of,
Yeah.
I really love the fact that WAPO actually has under losers the just beat Trump ethos. Like it's good to finally see them admit that it's tired and old and boring.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a scapegoat is all it is. Because like it's like it's an unspoken truth. The whole point of this thing, everyone here wants to be Trump. That's why we're here. We need to stop saying
Exactly.
let's beat Trump. Like, yeah, we get it. That you're in the boat of everyone get it. We're gonna beat Trump.
Since 2016, pretty much all we've heard is Trump is awful, Trump is terrible, and every time he does something, no matter what it is he's doing, it's the most awfulest and worstest thing that has ever happened in human history ever.
Yeah.
Even worse than the last thing he did the previous week. It's like, I get it, you don't like him, please move on,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm pulling that lever in 2020 unless somebody gives me a reason not to. And so far, you're not
Yeah.
giving me a reason not to.
So yeah, I just saw what you're talking about. But what I do see, which is pretty striking to me, they're saying Joe Biden was a loser.
Oh yeah,
And
I agree with that. He had a very poor showing last night,
he
in my opinion.
yeah
Anyway.
he does. Thing is, he's been doing poorly every single debate.
Yes, he has been doing poorly every single debate. He has not been doing very well in
Yeah,
in
and
this election.
but the thing he's this is the best of all the bad performances he's had. You know, so I mean, at least he was talking about some kind of substance, which is different for him. So
I mean, yeah, but I mean, like every time you see him talk, he changes a policy position. Like
yeah,
when Cory Booker called him out on the marijuana as a gateway drug thing, a myth that has been debunked for like 20 years, and then he came out and said it needs to be we should decriminalize it. I'm like, bro, you like just this week you were saying that it shouldn't be made legal, and now you're saying decriminalize it because you got called out on TV.
he basically just came out and said I'm not legalizing marijuana in a
Yeah,
politician-y
like
beat around the bush kind of way. So let's decriminalize it, but we still need to study the long-term effects. No, we've had marijuana for 50 years, bro. We know the
yeah, I mean,
long-term
marijuana.
effects.
People have been smoking for a long time, whether or not
We've been
you
smoking
know.
marijuana for thousands of years. Thousands
Yeah,
of years. Have you heard any negative effects other than what's been lied to us in the last 50 years during the war on drugs? You haven't. You have not. So he needs to get his he needs to get his head out of 1965 and get
yeah.
into the current age. So
Let's see if at some point during this whole thing, if he flubs up and says, "I'll bring home our boys from Vietnam," like what?
yeah, I fully expect that to happen. I would laugh at it, but I wouldn't say it wasn't expected. So they're saying also Tulsi Gabbard is a loser. I don't think so. I think she had a decent showing.
I
So
mean,
she attacked the Clinton establishment of the Democratic Party, which is actually a resonating point. You
the
know?
Democratic Party has been actively sabotaging her since day one. Why would she not punch back? You know what you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So I mean, she had a good night. I think Joe Biden had a better night. I wouldn't call him the absolute loser. The absolute losers are probably going to be. What was that other guy? I don't know the name of. That white dude that was all the way on the right hand corner.
oh god, running for who's running for president on the Democrat in the Democratic
Yeah, I don't know
primary?
who it was.
Uh, I don't even. I think that says a lot. We care. Uh, one dude dropped out. Um,
It's not Julian Castro because Julian Castro wasn't even up there.
Beto dropped out, right? So it's not
Yeah,
him.
Beto My Stork dropped out.
Oh, for Google. Dem primary candidates for a political show. We should know this, but
Happened in all the debates was when Beto O'Rourke and Cory Booker started speaking Spanish.
Oh, wasn't that like the first?
That was one of the first debates. It was the funniest thing because it was just so sad. They were all like, "Look at me! Look at me! I can speak Spanish! Habla español! Habla español! Look at me! I speak Spanish! No, I can speak Spanish too! Ah! I mean, I want to be president."
Like, congratulations, guys! You were on the level of the average high schooler.
Exactly. You're one of like 30, 40,000 million Americans. Sorry. So
a lot of people speak Spanish. You know, it's just the varying degrees of how well.
Both English and Spanish. Like almost all of my coworkers at my other job speak Spanish and English.
Nice. So. Not Tom Steyer.
I know a Filipino guy that speaks Spanish and English and Filipino and Chinese.
Dang. Okay, I'm jealous about that.
Yeah, that's all. That's pretty cool. He's also
it might have.
Huh?
Pete Buttigieg.
All right. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing up the Real Clear Politics 2020.
Bill de Blasio was running. Frick. Fucking dude.
So the last Democratic poll that came out had Biden and Emerson polling had Biden at 27, Bernie at 27, and Warren at 20 in national polling. So that was one of the uptrends. And then you have the Buttigieg at 7.
The Buttigieg.
Miss Narc at 3, and then what's a little infuriating is that they have Yang like 6th down the list, but he's actually ahead of her in the most recent polling. Also, they had Warren at 22 in YouGov poll. They didn't switch the things, but I guess it's based on like. Oh no, never mind. It's based on the averages instead. But Yang is ahead of Harris in the most recent poll.
I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but I feel like there's a clear bias, not just among the Democrat Party, but also among like the media outlets that very clearly support the Democrat Party.
Well,
against Tulsi and Yang, like.
Yes, definitely, because Tulsi was completely screwed out of the last debate, and then they got her back in.
Well, yeah, I saw like a YouTube video or something, and it was like all of Yang's total talking time and the debate. It was like a 4-minute video.
Yeah, he had a lot of talking time in this debate. That's another development of him. He had like 13 minutes. Which is
wow.
Yeah, he had a lot. He had more than Booker, I think. He had more than Harris. He had almost as much as Tulsi Gabbard. Plus, also Bernie. Good. Bernie didn't have a lot of speaking time last time either.
Really?
Yeah, he only had like 5 or 6 minutes, even though being one of the top 3 contenders. But this time around, he had like 15 minutes.
So, I think that might just be because Elizabeth Warren won't shut up.
She has to. For her to get an idea out, it takes her about the length of a short novel.
It's across everyone. Like, they'll ask a question to Booker, and he'll answer, and he'll mention like Tulsi, and then Warren will cut across and be like, "Well, I just want to answer that," and it's like, this has nothing to do with you. The question isn't directed at you. He didn't mention you. Keep quiet.
I mean, it's a little bit effective just because. It's a little bit effective just because it's it means that okay, I'm in that conversation and that's kind of what Donald Trump did in 2016. He would interject himself in other conversations. He's like, wrong, you're a liar.
Fair.
You know. Okay, hold on. My
at least like
opening and closing.
At least Trump, when he spoke, he would speak in a concise manner.
The wind is basically
hold on, I have to ask, do you live in like a shack in West Virginia, man?
Right.
You got like brakes going outside your window, your doors slamming.
No, it's just the pressure keeps moving the door in and out. So in Iowa, the current lead, hold on, I need to let it. I should. This should be showing up for everybody. Yeah, it is. Okay. Let me back up a little bit. Polls. Nation, the Iowa caucus. Okay. So for some reason, Buttigieg is number 1 in the Iowa caucus. Don't understand.
Who?
It says Buttigieg is number 1 in Iowa.
Voting districts.
So here's my thing with polling, right? They have to use landlines. Okay? Who has a landline phone anymore? Except for businesses.
True. Well, old people.
Exactly. Old people. So this is what old people think of the Democratic nomination.
Okay, even that being the case, let's assume that's the case. Pete Buttigieg? Really? Like,
I mean, Iowa is a small enough state where you can, and that's why the smaller states are first, just because you can start a grassroots movement in the smaller states and then carry that to the, to the later states in Super Tuesday. I really want to focus on here because I can't. Apparently, the hyperlink isn't working, which is annoying. Go to New Hampshire, where Bernie is absolutely killing it.
I'm looking at it here on the front page. Iowa has Pete at 23.5. New Hampshire's at Warren at 20.7.
Okay. That's why it's.
I mean, national Biden's ahead, but he has name recognition.
So that poll was done by Saint and part of it in my entire life. So yeah, I don't know if that should be taken into consideration. So again, you have to take the averages of the polling. You have Bernie Sanders in the CBS News YouGov poll at 31. Oh, wait, that's Warren. Never mind.
Yeah, Sanders around 20. Quinnipiac has him at 14. I don't know. I still say it's way too early to start because I feel like, I mean, we're definitely going to see a couple more people drop out before we get into like the meat of it. Because when are the actual primary votes? Like March, right? March or April?
Yeah. One of them that was really cool was is seeing the California primary poll, which I believe there was one. The Emerson poll from a couple months ago had Bernie at 26, tied with Biden. So, yeah, there's a lot of room, and there's a sleeper Bernie vote going on because he turns out young people more than any other candidate, and that showed up last time around because he was losing Michigan by 20, 30 plus points. I remember that. I remember watching the live showing. And isn't it funny that when the corporate media's candidate is winning in a poll, they're just like, okay, yeah, they won. It's over. It's we don't have to watch this. Let's just go back to talking about Trump. But when Hillary Clinton was losing in Michigan, they went down. It almost looked like they went down to each individual person's household to see how they voted. They delved so deep into every single region. Like, oh, this is how he's winning here. He's winning with the Hendersons on this street. They're all, oh my God, but the Johnsons over here are voting this way for Hillary. I'm like, it was ridiculous.
Well, I think on a pretty like surface level, it's like they want it to be true so bad that they go through so much effort to confirm what they want to be reality, even if it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's on in 2016, like the Trump Hillary race, where it was, they were saying all the way up until the end, all the way up until voting night, there's no way that Trump can win. There's no way that Trump can win. There's no way that Trump can win. And then he took Florida and was like, dude, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, took Florida.
Yeah, I mean,
and then he took
that's
Pennsylvania,
that's what I
and
mean
then
by that.
everything
There's
just fall
a
into place.
yeah, that's what I mean by that. There's a sleeper Bernie vote when he turns out young people and people that don't respond to these polls. And by the way, I have not gotten a single call on my cell phone from any polling station about this election. Not a single one.
Really?
Not a single call. I have not
Hmm.
a text message. I've not had a call. Nothing. So it is all landlines. So,
Hmm.
I mean, and that's what it is. People 50 years old, 50 years and up, that's how they're going to be voting. So if Bernie is doing this well with the elder vote, just think of what he's going to do when the young people come out for him. Because they had released a statement that Sanders their internal polls said that they were doing phenomenal. Like they were crushing it. Because they were taking into consideration the polling stations that were doing their thing and their when they do their cold calls. And I've done some of those cold calls, and you basically put in who they think they're going to vote for, who's their second option, and a little bit more detail. And they get that into their internal system, and they're like, okay, this is how it really is. Because we're also calling people cell phones. That's another thing. So,
I mean, you have to do this. I will say, the idea of a Trump v. Bernie election in 2020 does make me very, very excited, just because you have two such radically different candidates.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It will truly be a war of ideas. It's because neither of them are very center. Like Trump. I mean, Trump isn't exactly far right. I don't even know if you could really say that Bernie is like far left. Well, I guess he is. He's a self-avowed socialist. So
listen.
I
Democratic
give him that.
socialist. Democratic socialist. Let's be real. But in
Still,
in the spectrum
they
of
will clash, and I think that'll be really interesting.
what I'm saying is in the spectrum of not national, global politics, like in the EU, Bernie would be considered a centrist.
The EU is lost.
like in the UK, Bernie would be considered a centrist. He'd be part of like their majority party. I think it's like the labor union, the Labor Party or whatever. He would be like, they'd be like, yeah, dude, that's how we all think. You're not special. But in American politics, he's like this crazy democratic socialist. But yeah, what I'd like to annotate though is down here at the recent polling.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Trump versus Biden, and Trump is 51, Biden 49.
Yeah, I think the gap between the two would be a lot larger.
Oh my god. All right, so
you want to talk impeachment?
Do you want to change 2020?
I'd rather talk about Cenk running for Congress, because the impeachment to me is just I'm not super interested in it, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
No, I mean, we're not going to talk too much about like what. Oh, there we go. There is that face, that that Lego man head looking face. It does, though. It does, doesn't it?
Oh my god, that blockhead.
It looks very cylindrical, doesn't it?
Honest with you, I am really, really interested to see how it goes for him. Because I want to see if anybody brings up anything that he said from the past, I don't know, 8 to 10 years.
Oh, he did. So I want to get into that. So I saw his press conference, his pseudo press conference, where he was on his network as a guest talking about his run for president, which is, it's smart. He has a platform where he has millions and millions of followers. I mean, I would expect him to do that. If Trump had something like what he had, he would do the same thing. Anybody would. That.
Oh yeah.
Who is calling me? Hold on. Hold on. 1 second.
Look some stuff up here. He's going to fight for you. But is he?
I thought I was on Do Not Disturb mode. I guess it lied to me. Yeah, it's on. Let me turn my ring
Lie.
because it'd be fine if I saw it happen, but like Jesus Christ, scared the shit out of me. All right.
Being to replace Katie Hill, right? There's only one thing that can make this even more perfect, and that is if Ben Shapiro ran opposite him, because they both live in L.A.
Yeah, man, that. Whew.
Yeah.
Whew, okay.
I don't think it would happen, but that would. Oh man, I would.
You're foreshadowing the 2036 presidential election right here.
You're Shapiro.
Cenk versus Shapiro, 2036. How crazy would it be if that's what we were talking about? Like,
It would be
16 years
nuts.
from now.
We're sitting here like looking at us like,
I mean, this is the start. This is the
Will-
start for Mr. Cenk Uygur. Like,
hold on. Before we go any further, I need to know because I've heard his name pronounced like three different ways. Is it Uyghur, Uyghur, or Iger? It's Uyghur. Okay.
yeah, Cenk Uygur.
Okay.
I think the Y is silent in his last name, and the C is spelled like a It's supposed to be like an H there, but that's also silent, and it's also not in the letter. The letter doesn't show up.
Make it easy for me there. No, don't you? Yeah.
So the way you see it is exactly not the way it sounds.
That yeah. Exactly.
So
No,
I
so
mean, if you didn't speak English, you saw my
about,
name. If you didn't speak English and you saw my name, you wouldn't think that's how it's spelled because th is a very Anglo-Saxon word, or like basically a word. It's a sound. So you would think a lot of times my Filipino family will call me Natan.
Oh,
Natan,
really?
how are you, Natan? And I had to actually kind of drill my wife into it when we first started dating. It's Nathan. So hold on, there she is. She's calling me again. Jesus.
Oh, Cenk Uygur. Huh.
All right, we're back.
I'm reading this LAMag.com article about Cenk, and so I see something really interesting down at the bottom of this article. Apparently, running from the Republican side is George Papadopoulos
George
and
Papadopoulos.
Cernovich
Mm-hmm.
is running opposite Cenk. So it's not quite Cenk Shapiro, but it's getting there. I think that I'll love to see. I'm actually going to watch this with some interest.
Yeah,
Watch
this
Mike
is going to
Cernovich
be the debates that they're going to
off
have.
on each other.
The debates they're going to have is going to be.
It's not going to be a debate. They're just going to be yelling at each other.
I mean, this is what I've said about a lot of presidential candidates, and even like just like senatorial and congressional candidates. if you went up there, because Cenk is a very anti-corruption candidate, right? So he could do this. If you just went up there and you say this might be the second debate, right? The first debate, you lay out all your ideas and that's it, right? Because you know what they're going to come at you with. If you went up there and you said, you took money from X industry, you voted X way, this certain type of way. Why did you do that? You just go on the offensive with that every time. Then you debate on them why they voted that way. And you just keep doing it. Issue by issue by issue by issue. This would destroy Cory Booker. This would destroy Kamala Harris. This would destroy every career politician that was up there.
But I think that's going to backfire at some point too.
How would it backfire?
Because eventually,
if you do not take corporate money,
hold on. Yeah, but no, because even if you don't, at some point, someone's going to look at your fundraising and they're going to say, "Well, you took money from this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy," and then they're going to. I mean, people are going to connect the dots. Even if it's not from a corporation, it can be from a CEO of a corporation or someone that sits on the board of a corporation. Yeah, like that's going to backfire. I mean, it already backfired on Cenk when he debated Ben Shapiro last year, because he tried to go after him on the whole like get money out of politics thing, and then slammed him on the guy that set up the money for the Young Turks. You know, like it's not a good primary way to run. I don't think. You know, like. It can definitely. I think it's definitely something to kind of like keep in your pocket just in case.
Yeah, I mean,
but you don't want to put it out there front and center, because then people are going to start doing oppo research on you, and everybody has skeletons in their closet. Well, yeah, everybody does.
But let's take for instance Bernie Sanders, right? So they're absolutely, even when it's considered just the individual contributions, because the max individual contribution being $2,700, I believe. You can still see that who contributed to you, like me contributing to him is public record, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 0 billionaires have donated to Bernie Sanders' campaign. He can use that. He can use that fact to his advantage, and go up there. And when they're sitting here talking about healthcare, they're talking about something that they voted against, right? They voted against America's best interests and their constituents' best interests. You can be like, oh, so you took this kind of money from this industry. Why are you up here saying that now? When we know when you get in office, you're not going to vote that way. And you're not going to support this policy. Why are you just saying it now? Why are you just saying it now just to get the base of support? And just completely singled them out as a liar. Trump did this. He... not in a very direct way, the way I'm speaking of. He did that in a very. So yeah, if anyone would like to make any comments about it, we'll see it, and then we can discuss user comments. But anyway.
Oh. Well, I mean, yeah, but if somebody comes at Trump, right, and they're like, "Well, where are you getting your money from?" He can just be like, "I'm rich."
Exactly. You know? That's what he did. He said, "I'm self-funding my campaign." That's a very powerful position to hold, and he used it.
Oh yeah.
So that's basically what I'm saying. And in Cenk, yes, he has a chink in the armor.
Let's talk about Cenk. Let's talk about his past. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the softball stuff, or do you want to start with the hardball stuff?
Well. So let me preface this by saying I stopped watching the Young Turks about 2 years ago, when they really doubled down on Russiagate.
Yeah.
I kind of lost respect from them because it wasn't smart political thinking to double down on that thing, right? If you were going to go after Trump over the emoluments clause, I would be 100% right behind you, balls to the wall, ready to go for you, right? And they brought a lot of like social justice warrior stuff into TYT where it wasn't there before, And when that stuff started to fester and populate a lot of their content, it just really turned me off, because I'm not a social justice warrior type. I don't like talking about, especially with my predisposition, being a straight white male person. Not a lot of people are going to take what I have to say as fact.
Well, I mean, that's goes pretty much with what we've been saying, like why identity politics is so toxic.
Oh yeah. Hold on one second.
Because
let's read this viewer comment here. As a more center to moderate Democrat, it worries me to see the leftward drift of this party towards very liberal to very progressive policies. I hope the Democrats can nominate a candidate that shares American values and loves America. So there's basically 2 points to that comment, right? You're a very moderate and centrist Democrat. That's it's a free country. You can be in that boat. That's perfectly fine. But then he goes on to say American values. You have to have a candidate that loves American values and loves America. What values and what things does that mean? He follows up here. I can say I did not vote for Hillary in 2016. She was a very corrupt candidate. Was not happy with her policies. I'm not the biggest Trump fan, but I do believe he loves America, and I hope the Democrats can nominate a candidate like that who loves America and will do their best to keep America safe. Now, Trump says he loves America, and he's lying. He lies when he says he loves America because he does not do anything in the best interest of America. Like, what are the best interests of America? Creating more jobs.
I mean,
like,
we're at the lowest unemployment rate in like we're at the lowest unemployment rate in something like 20 years. The highest African American unemployment in like 30.
No, there's a difference between employment and like how much we're getting paid. The wages have stagnated since like 1980 or 1970, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, but you can't put that at Trump's feet.
You kind of can
that's not up
he's
to
not
Trump.
Supporting any minimum wage. He's not supporting any kind of employee protection policies. Nothing.
As well as I do.
He's making it harder for high-paying jobs to stay in this country, but not supporting what he did support in his run for president. Trade policies, like ending trade war and the trade policies, and the trade war is also affecting, farmers.
As I do, as well as I do, that a minimum wage hike is not going to increase standard of living in this country. A minimum wage hike is going to increase inflation. I mean, that's just basic economics right there.
Well, it's
but I think the heart of this comment is really just the kind of, I mean, we saw it when Obama ran, this whole like apology to the world for America, when America is literally the thing that's kind of holding the world together. I mean, after World War II, the reason why we had to set up so many bases was because Europe couldn't go 10 years without starting another war.
Yeah.
And this is just me. I'm kind of tired of people. Oh, America's an empire. They're in every nation in the world. Like, believe me, as an American, I wish we could get our boys out of every nation in the world. Let's say we pull out of South Korea tomorrow. North Korea is going to nuke South Korea, and then China is going to invade. We don't have any option but to be there.
Yeah, no one is arguing against being in South Korea, right? Because you see that they're a capitalist economy who supports American industry by way of smartphones, cars, all of that stuff, right? No one is arguing against that. But a lot of our jobs that got shipped away are going to countries that do not hold American values, as in like China and Vietnam, all these places. Jobs that could stay in America. If you told me right now, right, the car you buy would be $500 to $1,000 more expensive, but it's made in America. The same, because I have a Honda car, right? A Honda car is really cheap and it's really reliable though. If you told me
manufactured in America,
that there are cars manufactured in America, but they're actually really not, because Ford has shipped their jobs to Mexico.
But like Honda, Toyota, and Nissan do the bulk of their manufacturing in America.
Exactly. That's even the craziest part. But they're not American companies. So if we were able to keep jobs in the country, but pay a little bit more, I feel like every American would be on board with that. And like if you said like, hey, I have this X product that costs $10, but if it was made in America, it would cost $11. You are supporting people in your community. People, you are supporting your country and jobs in your country by buying that product that's made in America.
I don't mean to be a negative Nelly, but I just don't think that's true. I think like your average American, if you say, hey, look, you can buy this product that's made in America and it's $15, or you can buy this other similar product that's made in China, it's $10. Your average American is gonna go for the $10 thing. I mean, I see it all the time in what I do. Like you can support the community and pay a little bit more, or you can order something on Amazon and save $5.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are like, well, I'll save the money. I'm
Yeah,
like,
but that's
okay,
the thing. Amazon pays nothing in income tax. Nothing. Amazon pays nothing in federal income tax. That is another thing.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's the point I'm trying to make though, is that like your average person, they don't really think too much about the long term effects. And I don't want to say they don't think about it, but I think in a lot of times they can't afford to be concerned.
Yeah.
About it.
Darkness
You know
has
what I
this
mean?
little bit of a block text comment that I want to get to. This is, for example, on border security, but like a Democrat would not just let any average person walk across our border who will be for at least vetting people to make sure we know who's coming in. Not someone who just wants to give amnesty to everyone feeling violence and poverty. I also look for candidates who will fight for the middle class and not be bought off by corporations or big money donors. Darkness, both of us have that exact same sentiment. I completely agree with you there. I'm sure that you would agree with that, wouldn't you, Matt?
First part.
The first part? And what about the second part of that?
Well, and we've had this discussion. I still am not completely convinced that like the giant corporations and big money donors really affect the elections to a substantial degree. I will definitely say that there are definitely actors, domestic and abroad, that have interest in our elections and attempt to manipulate the outcome. And definitely like donations are a way to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just in this last election, Trump spent a fraction of what Hillary did, and he won.
Yeah.
So money, dumping money onto the.
I mean, if you're talking about the presidency, it's very. You have to understand, Trump got, I think it was worth $2 billion in free advertising from his media coverage. So from Fox News, just alone, I think it was somewhere around high hundreds of billions of dollars, just the worth of free advertising.
Yeah, and CNN couldn't stop talking about him, and they supported. They were like very squarely in Hillary's camp, and every segment was about Trump. Yeah.
And when you have every major news outlet talking about Trump, giving him free advertising, yeah, he technically did outspend Hillary. Because Hillary, put like $1.5 billion into her campaign, probably got about $5 billion in free advertising. Trump probably spent about $700 million, but he got like $2 billion in free advertising. So it's 2.5 or 2.7 billion against $2 billion, right? And this is another point I like to make about Bernie, is that he has well over now, probably around 2 million volunteers to his campaign. And if everyone spent an hour a day, once a week, for the next 52 weeks, just putting down an hour of volunteer work, that's worth, according to the suggested minimum wage and the minimum wage of productivity, which is roughly around $27 an hour, is worth $1.5 to $2 billion just in the volunteer work. And Hillary had no ground game. She had no volunteer structure. She had no grassroots support. She was trying to go on name recognition alone.
because she thought she could just dump money on the problem. I
Exactly.
mean, that's not,
She
and
just
it's just not true.
exactly, and it goes to show because she lost the Rust Belt because she didn't campaign there.
Yeah.
So Hillary lost, and she lost because she was ignorant and she was arrogant about it. But
Prove my point that it's not direct money and like because and I think we're going to hear this a lot in this election cycle is we need to get money out of politics. We need to get money out of politics. But I mean the money in the politics isn't the biggest concern. Like the biggest concern is with voter rolls and making sure that people are actually voting in their proper districts and that they're getting counted correctly. I mean, how many? I keep hearing reports about issues with voting machines doing this and doing that, and people not being counted on voter rolls. I think before we really start focusing in on, okay, we have to make sure that a corporation can't just dump money into a candidate. I think we need to make sure that the actual voters, the will of the people, is actually being heard properly. Still there?
yeah, I'm still here. I'm reading Darkness's comment. He's talking about
Oh yeah.
Democrats whitewashing history. I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at here, Darkness. Yes, we need to look at the culture in our society and see if it's actually best for how humanity should operate.
Well,
and I think what he's trying to get at is not forgetting history.
I think that kind of comes down to the fact that like the Democratic Party specifically has gone through great pains to try to paint the Republicans as the party of racism without acknowledging that in the Jim Crow South the Democrat Party at the time opposed integration and supported the KKK.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a matter of record.
Definitely.
Whether or not they do now is a completely different thing. But you can't, paint your opposition party as historically racist when there's evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. So, but back to the point about campaign finance reform. The point I was trying to make is that in the presidential election, money doesn't necessarily matter as much as the grassroots support and the media coverage you get. In Senate elections and in congressional elections, it matters a lot more because you could basically have a targeted audience where you can just flood the airwaves with slander and political ads nonstop. We see it every election cycle. If someone's getting 10-1 negative ads against somebody, that it influences people. It really does. And if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it you can see it in Texas, in Arizona, and Nevada. There are, they get a lot of money from out of state. A lot of Californian donors donate money. Like when Beto ran against Ted Cruz, a lot of Beto's money came from California, and he almost took it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Beto is the champion of campaign finance reform. He's not. He's also a corrupt person who's taking corporate money. But when it's hard to buy a presidential election. It's very easy to buy a congressional election. Is what I'm basically trying to say.
Yeah, I think I'm more speaking as to why you probably won't see any like great strides taken for campaign finance reform because both sides have a lot to lose.
Yeah, and even the thing, you have both sides having a lot to lose, but what you basically need is people leading by example and not taking corporate money. And this is one of the things that Cenk is going to be doing. Yes, he does. I mean, running a media company is a bit different than running it's very different from running a political campaign. Because as a media company, you get somebody to say, here I'm going to invest in your company for $5 million. Are you really going to ask a lot of questions? You're probably gonna ask some questions. You'll probably be like,
Be
hey,
wise to ask questions. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, are you gonna try to influence what we're gonna talk about? Or is this just a very financial investment? You see we're growing, and then you want to return on your investment. That's a different story. That's a business decision, not a political decision. Because what I believe is that what seems to have happened was whatever investments they've received in TYT hasn't really affected what they want to talk about. You know,
I mean, yeah, I can definitely believe that. I mean, because I would think if they were having if they did have like say a big corporate sponsor trying to like direct what they covered,
they wouldn't even.
they would not. They would probably be covering completely different, or they would be covering the same material but in a different way.
Yeah, but and I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's really affected them. And you do have people, and it's kind of like when you like start. Think of it, you're starting a restaurant, right? You have this person who comes in, they invest money in your restaurant, right? And then they come in and start telling you how to cook. You're like, this is not the deal. You invested money because you believed in my ability to cook good food. You know, and time and time again, it's shown. And there's a restaurant I used to work for that was like that. The two brothers that started the company would interject themselves in every little decision of the entire company, and the company got bought out, and they no longer own a restaurant. And what was funny was that the other brother basically, and I won't name names, I won't name what the thing is, just for reasons, but the other brother said, "Yeah, you guys don't know how to run a restaurant. We're cutting you out." You know,
Hmm.
and that's basically it's basically the same thing, especially when in a media company you're producing a product. If the investors try to weasel their way in and tell you how to make your product, then it becomes a big problem. So, I mean, like I said, I don't think that's really going to come up. The people that have invested in TYT into Cenk's 2020 congressional campaign. Let's kind of just go through here a little bit. So it's basically saying he founded Wolfpack, which is a anti-corruption league, trying to make and I'm very familiar with what Wolfpack does. They're trying to subvert Congress by doing a state convention to make an amendment to the Constitution to end big money in elections, make public finance of elections a thing. So that's basically all in the long and short of what Wolfpack is about. They're just about getting all of the state legislatures together to subvert Congress, which is not a bad idea. So, going to the issues here, and there it is, front and center. First subject: corruption in politics. And then he goes into higher wages, which is a very, especially in his district, which is a purple district. It's a really good talking point in that district, and it's going to help him out trying to get a lot of lower income Republican voters. And he in the second sentence of this, he targets Mitch McConnell, which is good because it's making
Why even talk about Mitch McConnell? He's running for.
Well, I mean, he's basically targeting the leader of the Republicans at this point, and the congressional leader of the Republicans. So he's targeting him. He's not going right after Donald Trump, which is a good strategy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we can both agree that's a very good strategy because you don't want the Donald punching back because honestly, here the worst thing that the Democrats, anyone running on a Democrat ticket can do is put themselves on Donald Trump's radar because if they get on his radar, he's going to punch and his base is going to eat it up and it's going to make him look strong.
Yeah. So the next thing he has going here is supporting small businesses, which is another really good thing, especially for a congressional race. Senate race maybe not as much, but a congressional race where it's very small. It's a very small district that you have, and you're really targeting those people in that particular community. So that's also a very smart thing to do, to just go straight for small businesses. And then another thing too is immigration rights down here. So this part right here, because there's probably a lot of immigrants in California, especially in
I mean,
that
there.
particular
I mean,
district.
I think we both know when we see immigration rights what he's really talking about. Like, you can spend it as much as you want, but yeah,
So
like
what is he saying? The dreamers are kids who came to America when they were young, have graduated high school, signed up for armed forces. They're the best of us, not the worst of us. I'm disgusted how Republicans demigod against them. Now that's a good thing to be saying, especially in that particular district, because a lot of them are immigrants and kids that were brought here and are basically consider themselves as Americans. You know,
I, I think it's a very reductive take on the whole on the whole immigration situation because it's not, the idea of illegal immigration isn't just, it's if everyone that immigrated that crossed the border illegally, said, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to join the military, or I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to open a business. I don't think anybody would have a problem with it, but not everyone that crosses the border illegally does that. And it's proven. There's empirical data to show that a lot of gangs and a lot of drug cartels and a lot of criminals from Mexico do cross illegally. They use illegal crossings to traffic people, to traffic children, to traffic women, to and from America and internationally.
yeah,
And I just think reducing the concept of immigration reform to dreamers, to the kids who were born here and who just want to live the American dream, I think that really hurts the whole discussion because nobody's ever going to say, oh, okay, a kid that was born here and whose dad works as a roofer and they're in school, no one's going to say, well, that's the guy that we want to see deported.
yeah, and I'm
MS-13
if,
cutting people's
as
heads off, like.
as that point of immigration goes, I believe there are a lot of different angles you can take on a particular issue, right? The main reasons the drug cartels have so much power is because they sell drugs, right? That is their cash cow. That's how they make money, and a big percentage of their profit comes from marijuana. So as soon as you legalize marijuana, you start cutting out their profits. And make if you stop demonizing drug addicts and you start treating it as a medical condition, you start to reduce the drug addiction in this country. Also, overprescription of opioids and having pharmaceutical companies stop over drugging people and getting them addicted to opioids.
Yeah, well, once you start working on decriminalizing and destigmatizing drug addiction, then you cut the head off of the illegal cartels.
Mm-hmm.
Because these people are making their money off of smuggling illegal drugs and selling them in the country.
Yeah.
But if you just you know you know if you just brought it above board and said, okay, hey, here's the deal, uh, we're going to make it legal. Now we're going to tax you. I've said it before and I said it again. The most frightening thing in the arsenal of the United States, services in the United States federal government is the IRS.
Yeah, it is.
The IRS brought Al Capone.
It's funny is there's a joke that's, I think it was from one of the old Batmans, that said, he was like, man, I'm not scared of Batman, but don't you get the IRS on my tail. And this was the Joker saying this.
And when he inherited the money from the crime boss, and the
that's what it
tax
was.
man cometh, and he was like, not even I'm crazy enough to take on that.
That's what it was. Yeah. So if you bring it in and you bring it into the public light, get it out of the black market, what happens is the drug cartels have to go to something else, right? They're like, okay, we can't do marijuana anymore. They're treating the heroin crisis as a medical disease instead of a ideological disease. They're they're doing all these things, so our profit margins are just taking a huge hit. We can't do this anymore. So what are we going to have to go to? We're going to have to go to prostitution, human trafficking, weapons, arms deals, all that stuff. Now, what does that do for like
law enforcement? It frees up law enforcement to focus on all those worst things, because instead of busting and processing somebody for 2 grams of weed, they're looking for the guys with the guns and the guys trafficking women for forced prostitution.
Exactly. And it frees up so much time for the DEA and like in these investigative branches of the local police in those areas to be like, okay, so now we know what to focus on, right?
But I need to actually hop off because I have an engagement I have to start getting to.
Gotcha.
I think it was a good talk. I think
I think
we had a vibrant conversation.
Oh, yeah, between us. Definitely. And we can talk some more about Cenk as some more news comes out. One last little point about his platform being he's going after climate change. I'll have to read a little bit more into this. It's probably because he's talking about how his district, the planet is on fire. So he's talking about the wildfires that are happening, and that's a very direct thing that's happening to his district. So.
Oh yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna bone up a little bit on this, and next time we get together, we can talk about this some more in the impeachment hearings.
Oh, definitely.
And unless the world blows up, which is.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
With that, thank you for stopping in, Matt. Great episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna end the stream, but I'm gonna restart the stream here in a couple of minutes because I'm gonna stream some Kerbal Space Program. It's gonna be great. We're gonna build some rockets. We're gonna get to Kerb and start doing some cool stuff. So, or get to Midmas, I should say. All right, you have a good one, Matt. Have fun in your pre-engagement, your party, whatever you're going to. So,
I'm going to do D&D.
You're gonna go D&D. All right. And that has been Matt, everybody. All right. Thank you all for stopping in. I appreciate it. If anyone has any lasting questions for me, I'm still open to take some comments for right now. But if not, like I said, we're going to go switch gears. I'm going to take a little bit of break. I'm going to get some food, and I'm going to play some Kerbal Space Program.